What's your favorite example of very specific or accurate usage of work-related jargon in a fic? Reading a fic by someone who's actually in the profession they're writing about, so you're witnessing jargon unlike anything you've ever seen before. I think about the fic where Sasuke Uchiha works for the Ottawa Housing Board every single day. Credit to Reddit user CTO Tyrell for starting this thread on the AO3 subreddit. Now let's go read some answers. Warning, I'm probably gonna pronounce some names wrong, but you guys make fun of my accent anyway, so be nice to me. The fic mentioned in that screenshot is excellent, by the way. I love that the sequel fic is tagged Canon Typical NPSW Corporate Barbecue, with National Public Service Week being probably not a thing in Naruto canon. The fic is basically in the Canada Public Service fandom at this point. My own fic, LMAO. As an EMT and a WUMP enthusiast, I often use my medical knowledge in my work. Doing the Lord's work, bruh. I love me some medically accurate WUMP. It's so good. It's not on AO3, but I read a fic that got incredibly detailed about the internal politics of the Catholic Church and the logistical nuances of volunteer firefighter departments. It wasn't until I later trained as an EMT that I realized just how accurate the firefighter parts were, and I assume the church parts were the same way. A fanfic where Doctor Strange was one of the main characters, and the author was also a neurosurgeon. That was wild. I read House MD fics on and off, and the difference between fics where the author has no idea how hospitals work and fics where the author either has experience or did their research is insane. That kind of cracks me up, because the entire show is aggressively inaccurate legally, procedurally, and scientifically, so like, are the pantsers inadvertently writing closer to canon? I work at Build-A-Bear and wrote a Bungo Stray Dogs fic where Dazai and Chuya go there as teenagers. I had war flashbacks every time I made the employee talk because it was the exact same stuff I'd said 5,000 times already that day. Not quite a profession, but there's someone in the Critical Role fandom who has written 3 separate AUs where the characters are rock climbers, and it's gotten several people, including me, into climbing. There's also an incredibly detailed Critical Role volcanologist AU fic. From my own writing, it's whenever I go into ridiculous detail about music and lesser-known instruments. Not gonna lie, the whole basis of a chapter was me wanting to info dump about a specific culture's musical instruments, LMAO. So if anyone wanted to learn about the Shalaparta, Zitsu, and other old lesser-known instruments through Resident Evil, you're welcome. Not in the profession, but I'm planning to be one day. My current longfic is about a sommelier and a winemaker, and I've been worried I'm gonna scare away my readers with too much wine info or something. I am always pleasantly surprised by how much readers love details. I'm always afraid of going too far, but readers seem to love stuff like that. You should go for it. I read one recently where the author clearly worked selling expensive jewelry and went into detail describing, bantering with clients about, or judging clients for the settings, carat size, and cuts of different pieces. It was a good fic, but I had to Google to see what the fuck they were describing. I have one character in the series who's worked on robots, and the other has not. In their POVs, I vary how they describe the tech. Oh, sick! I love it when authors are cognizant of different internal experiences. The one lifeguard AU fic written by an actual pool lifeguard that went into depth about the training and drills they have to go through and stuff. It was so fun. I once did an insane amount of research for a one-shot modern AU that took place in the military in Afghanistan. My search history either made me look like I'm trying to enlist or up to no good. Never wrote another military AU again. I learned a lot about library science from that one Game of Thrones fic where Stannis is head librarian at a university. I'm a figure skater, and hoo boy, can I tell whether or not an author is. It's always super random tiny things, LMAO. Lots of Ace Attorney fics with legal terms and procedures I have never heard before. Sorry, I only know defendant and ballistic markings. Just so you know, in some lawyer circles, we will joke about using the objections from Ace Attorney. It's more popular than the show Suits among the nerds. That being said, the entire canon is so painfully inaccurate it would probably be more out of place to use correct procedure. Anyways, now I want to go and find out if I can spot which fics were written by a lawyer. Oh, it has to be this one. Using my IRL knowledge of hypnosis for unethical fic crimes, my beloved. The first one that comes to mind was an AU set in an upscale restaurant, and it was just so obvious that the author had a ton of restaurant kitchen experience. Yep, I've worked in kitchens for years, and anytime it's done well, I appreciate it. Horses. For an animal that is a constant throughout history, getting them right is hard. My favorite is probably an AU where the characters are zookeepers. I learned a ton about animal care and how zoos work. The one where Hua Cheng from Heaven Official's Blessing is a carpenter. The author had a suspicious amount of knowledge about how to lay down hardwood floors. If that's the same one I'm thinking of, I will never forget the author's note that's like, "Look, I know how long it should take one person to do this roofing job, but the narrative needs it to be faster, so it was faster." The most iconic one of all time to me is the Destiel fic from like 10 years ago that took place in a remote Alaskan research facility. My god, the detail. At one point, Dean is guessing at Castiel's backstory based on the age and brand of his fieldwork equipment. Craziness! Another all-timer for me had Wei Wuxian from The Untamed working as a small business accounts manager at a bank. It was a whole plot point dependent on a payroll software error. It rocked! I read/am reading, haven't finished it yet, a fic where the dudes from Sports RPF are crab fishermen in Alaska. The author apparently got a never-seen-before flavor of autism where their special interest is the deadliest catch. I'm still baffled by how much I now know about the strategic importance of the setter and minutiae of developing an ace serve in professional volleyball from a BTS fanfiction. The fact that it was BTS and not like Haikyuu is what's hilarious to me. This is beautiful Tim confic where Tim goes to art therapy, and it's very evident that the author is an art therapist or has experience in that field because it's so detailed. That F1AU Jujutsu Kaisen fic. I don't know anything about Formula 1, but man, the author did. There were links to actual racetracks around the world and so on. I learned a lot about the twisted and dark world of professional car racing through that fic, and I have a good knowledge about professional sports and competitive sports in general in other fields, so the fic felt intelligible. I once read a Sherlock fic where the characters were actual Hollywood actors, and the author certainly seemed to know a lot about the movie industry. I had to stop reading the OG Love Hypothesis when it was being uploaded as a Raylo fic after the characters had an extremely detailed conversation about troubleshooting Western blots. I was in the middle of a weeks-long process of troubleshooting my own blot at the time, and I got too triggered to keep reading. I read a Transformers fic which spoke about the lattice structures and sound waves in crystals, and well towards the end of the fic, it was proven indeed such structures do exist in crystals, and it was shown through revolutionary X-ray microscope technology. The author literally wrote about a scientific phenomenon which was then discovered to be true. Like, truly, that fic is already legendary, but it deserves way more attention just for that feat alone. The character I write for has wings, and I have to tell myself that I have to ignore class airspaces, because I work in aviation, and my readers should never be exposed to the nightmare that is the legality of regulated flight spaces. The Hobbit/Lord of the Rings cast in an AU where they went to the Paralympics. The majority of the main protagonists were wheelchair users. It was mind-blowing and extremely educational. One of my all-time favorites is a college AU for Alex and Michael from Roswell, New Mexico. The author went to the same college they wrote about, which is in Albuquerque, where Can and Michael grew up. It's 280,000 words of mostly fluff, but so incredibly detailed it feels like you are actually there. They even made a timetable for their lessons and figured out which courses the two characters might have together. Every building had a name, and so did the professors. They wrote about which restaurants and bars the students would go to and where the nearest Starbucks was. They spent more than necessary paragraphs nerding about computer specs and a complete chapter about Alex making chili. It was totally unnecessary for the story to write out the complete recipe, but I loved reading about the author's passion for food. I reread this story every couple of months, even though it takes a week every time to read it through. Totally worth it. I can't wait for an excuse to write a fic with an astronomer, so I can inflate my word count by describing in excruciating detail how to set up an astrophotography rig and the benefits of different types of mounts and optical systems. Me doing a job none of my faves would even think about doing, so I can't realistically write anything about them doing that. Ahem, but challenging them in that way could make some amazing stories. I now need a billionaire with like 10 kids to write a Batman fic because he's also a billionaire. As someone who might actually end up working for the Ottawa Housing Board one day, I live in Ontario and have a degree in an adjacent field, I'm suddenly very curious what this first fic is. Your wish is my command. Big thank you to my Patreon members, my Little Ruse, Nebulatic Vexen, Donka42, John Huang, Lazy Scorpio, Night Avenger, Mintara, Somnophobic Danny, Savage Otters, Valzy, Terabyte AIX, Kestrel, Dragonborn Canid, Angie Ender, Marpsk, and Windigo. Thank you so much for your extra support on Patreon. It means the world to me. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you guys are doing well. Keep on being awesome. I believe in you, and I wish the best in life for you. And the same goes to my YouTube channel members, my mini-ruse, Foxstar Killer, Rainy Cant, Alyssa North24, Siggy, and Komoda. Thank you so much for your extra support. I'm so glad to have you be a part of my YouTube channel. Always good to see you around. I send all my best wishes your way. Have faith in yourself, because I have faith in you. And thank you to everyone else for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what hyper-specific work-related jargon you've seen in a fanfiction, or that you yourself have written into a fanfiction. I've never really had a job where I would really be able to write anything hyper-specific. I've certainly had jobs with interesting experiences, like going up on a catwalk above a stage and changing the light bulbs. Appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you next time.